Now, I know in the real world it's considered somewhat gauche to go around ranking races, but I assure you, this is all completely above board. You're allowed to do it for fantasy races because of something called min-maxing. I'm going to be mostly showing footage from Baldur's Gate 3, as it's also set in the Forgotten Realms, which is the setting for Dungeons & Dragons, plus BG3 footage is a lot more entertaining to look at than a bunch of people sitting at a table. There are probably some people out there wondering why they should listen to my take on this, considering I'm a guy who usually talks about Sonic, not a Dungeons & Dragons channel. So, what is the best race? Elves. Just kidding! Seriously, can you imagine if you clicked on a video about the best race in Dungeons & Dragons and it was fucking elves? Like, I don't even specifically hate elves or anything, it's just like, god damn, that would be such a boring-ass answer. Fucking elves. Like, seriously, somehow that would be even worse than if I said humans. So, the best race is... Actually, you know what? I'm gonna waste even more of your time first to really build the suspense. This video is inexplicably sponsored by Factor, the ready-made meal company. Factor eliminates the hassle of prepping, cooking, and cleaning up with these fresh, never-frozen meals. With Factor, you can rest assured that you're making a sustainable choice. Factor offsets 100% of delivery emissions and sources 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices. As someone who definitely understands what that means, I can assure you, it's a good thing. Now guys, you know me. I am an exceedingly stupid person, like I have the IQ of a rock. And on top of that, I'm incredibly lazy. But guess what? With Factor, it's not a problem. It's so easy and fast that even someone as abjectly useless as me can have a chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meal that's ready to eat in just 2 minutes. I mean, it's so convenient and easy. If you can't figure out how to heat up a Factor meal, I'm not sure I can help you, man. I think you have some serious issues. So head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50cybershell to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50cybershell at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. I mean, that's free shipping. What do you want to pay for shipping? Are you stupid or something? Just use the code for God's sake. Okay, for real though, I just want you to hear me out because I literally guarantee the second I say what it is, at least 90% of the people watching this are instantly going to click off. But just give me a chance to explain my position, okay? The best race is Duergar. Yes, that's right, the evil, gray-skinned dwarves who live underground. I'm gonna be honest, if I was in your shoes right now, I would be skeptical too. Like, I never really used to be a dwarf guy. I was Horde back when WoW was new. Like, give me the choice between a cool monster guy or a fucking human or a short human or an even shorter human. It's not a contest. It was only a few years back when I finally got into Dwarf Fortress a bit where I began to really appreciate dwarven culture. But good news, it's fine even if you hate dwarves, because nobody hates dwarves more than the Duergar. Hell, the Duergar don't even particularly like other Duergar. They only stick together out of necessity. If you've never heard of the Duergar before, well, first of all, what are you doing with your life? But allow me to give you a super condensed history lesson. Basically, they were just a clan of dwarves who were greedier than everyone else, basically making them the best dwarves. They delved deep and lived in the Underdark, but they were attacked by mind flayers and enslaved by them for generations. During this time, they evolved into a distinct subrace, and possibly due to the many cruel experiments performed on them, they were able to tap into their psionic powers. Eventually, they rose up against their captors and broke free from Illithid control. Look, after BG3, everyone loves the Githyanki now. They get a pass for being absolute bastards because their race has the tragic backstory of being enslaved by the Illithids. Well, the Duergars have the exact same fucking backstory. They were also enslaved by Illithids and managed to liberate themselves. But nobody ever wants to cut the Duergar some slack. There's no sexy Duergar love interest in Baldur's Gate 3. Also in BG3, certain races get special dialogue options that occasionally come up. Now, no surprise, the Githyanki have the most by a huge margin. But the Duergar are in a respectable third place, right behind Lothsworn Drow. And actually, you can see by this key over here that Duergar specifically have the most unique dialogue of any sub-race, on top of having access to the standard dwarf tag dialogue options. The other dwarf choices don't get shit by comparison. So as we all know, one of the biggest problems with dwarves is that they're fucking annoying. Have you ever seen The Hobbit Part 1 where they all come in and fuck up Bilbo's house? You see, that's why Duergar is so great. They're basically like dwarves without all this stupid bullshit. What is the most relatable part of dwarven culture? That's right, their uncontrollable greed and lust for gemstones. Now Dwergar have that, but like times 1,000. If you're one of those grind set hustler assholes, you have to like these guys. Unlike regular dwarves who love to sit around and drink alcohol, mastering useless arts and crafts, the Dwergar are much more utilitarian and focus solely on the accumulation of wealth. Truly the natural endpoint of capitalism is Dwergar society. The Dwergar are lawful evil, which everyone knows is the best alignment. I mean, lawful good is for lame-ass goody two-shoes, chaotic good is for Joker wannabe tryhards, chaotic evil is for fucking psychopaths, and neutral anything is just boring. This leaves lawful evil as the only viable alignment choice if you're not a fucking loser. Look, I don't know how to explain it, but these guys just crack me up. Like, sorry, I have to read this paragraph directly from the Forgotten Realms fandom wiki, which, you know, it must be good because it's on fandom, right? The suffering of others was one of the rare times that the Dwergar could feel some semblance of happiness. They enjoyed tormenting those vulnerable to their predations, but this was not to be mistaken for the wasteful and extravagant displays of cruelty shown by the Drow. Rather, the Dwergar enjoyed more down-to-earth suffering, working others to death and using cruel jokes and petty abuse to bring a momentary smile to their faces. The closest they came to feeling true joy was when satisfying their violent urges and desire for treasure, especially when raiding dwarven strongholds to do it. God, I love the Dwergar so much. This is the funniest shit I've ever heard. Nothing puts a smile on my face like imagining these bitter, joyless, subterranean creatures just hating their lives. It is of the utmost importance in Dwergar society to never show any weakness, which includes experiencing happiness or joy, or showing kindness in any form. Now, a lot of people are not super chill about the rampant use of slavery in Dwergar society, but guys, I have some great news. After generations of using slave labor, they're finally moving away from the practice. Not because of any moral reason, just because they found that psionic-powered robots do a better job. Alright, I know I've been fucking around a little bit, telling some jokes, and some of you out there are still thoroughly unconvinced. Like, why should I play as some evil little gray-skinned dwarf? What are the actual, tangible benefits? Well, let's take a look at what you get by playing as a Dwergar in Baldur's Gate 3. Well, first off, as denizens of the Underdark, they have superior dark vision, seeing clearly up to 24 meters in the dark. In addition to the standard Dwarven resilience, which grants advantage on saving throws against being poisoned and poison damage, they also have Dwergar resilience, which gives the advantage on saving throws against illusions and being charmed or paralyzed. Now guys, when you're fighting someone to the death, you do not want to be charmed or paralyzed, trust me. But all these powerful defensive racial abilities, that's just the icing on the cake. This shit doesn't even matter. The real reason to pick them is access to their 2 special Dwergar magic spells, tapping into their latent psionic abilities. Think for a second, what is the primary disadvantage of being a dwarf? That's right, they're fucking short. And don't act like that's not the deal breaker for you either. Look at these statistics released by Larian in December 2023. Look at the race choices. The bottom 3 races are the 3 short ones. Coincidence? More people picked Githyanki, fucking Githyanki, over the tried and true fantasy staple of a dwarf. Again, obviously if you played the game, you'd understand that the Gith have a pretty major story presence and they're quite strong, so it's not that surprising, but still. More people would rather play as these ugly, lanky, psycho frog-looking motherfuckers than just be a little short. So that's it, right? Dwergar are doomed because they're short. But what if they weren't? At character level 3, you learn Enlarge. And not just the regular version of the Enlarge spell, this racial ability lets you cast Enlarge at any time once per long rest, and it doesn't take a spell slot, and it doesn't even require concentration. So that's advantage on any ability checks and saving throws using strength, and weapon attacks deal an extra 1d4 of damage. It also stacked with Elixir of the Colossus if you ever want to go nuts and get absolutely huge. So sure, you might be short most of the time, but whenever the moment calls for it and you need to get big, you can. It's like you've got Zoltar in your back pocket. It's a reference to the Tom Hanks movie Big, although it's actually not a super accurate comparison because in that movie it's a child wishing to become an adult, and in the case of the Dwergar it's just making you physically larger. Moving on, the second special Dwergar ability makes the first one look like a joke. I mean, you might be thinking, sure, Enlarge for no spell slot, not requiring concentration, that's pretty cool, but it's just a level 2 spell. Well, at character level 5 you learn another ability, and it's also just a level 2 spell. But this one is Invisibility. Now once again, maybe that doesn't sound so impressive to you, but the Dwergar version of Invisibility is much better than the standard spell. Like with Enlarge, it doesn't cost a spell slot, However, it doesn't recharge on a long rest, it doesn't recharge on a short rest, it recharges per battle, meaning you can use it once per battle and an unlimited amount of times outside of combat. Let me just repeat that. Starting at level 5, Dwergars get unlimited free invisibility outside of combat. So that's a free surprise opening on every encounter, getting to skip any encounter you want, getting to steal tons of shit, and it's okay because that's canonically what a Dwergar would do. You can use the invisibility to heavily mitigate the disadvantage of the 1.5 meter reduced movement speed of dwarves. So you can go invisible. Like sure, obviously that's going to help any assassin or stealth archer type build, but is that really going to help me if I'm a barbarian or paladin? Yes, actually. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. There is really never a tactical downside to being invisible. In fact, it's so much more advantageous to be invisible than it is to be visible, it kind of makes you wonder why anyone ever chooses to be visible at all. So yeah, it's actually incredibly helpful for melee characters to close the gap, and even as a spellcaster, you can cast Minor Illusion while invisible, basically letting you have absolute control of the enemy's position before the fight even begins. Round him up, hit him with an AoE, do whatever you want to him. You don't understand, I'm telling you, every game plan is improved by these two abilities. If you're a druid, you can stealth above the enemies, then enlarge yourself and hit him with an owlbear from the top ropes. If you're a monk, you can sneak right next to someone, saving your bonus action for your flurry of blows. Then the enlarge gives you an extra d4 of damage per attack. Guys, Dwergar are fucking awesome. The major con of being a Dwergar is, of course, their sunlight sensitivity. As residents of the Underdark, these critters do not like being in direct sunlight, giving them disadvantage on attack rolls and perception checks that rely on sight. They can still move around on the surface, it's just easier at nighttime. But guess what? If you're playing Baldur's Gate 3, the devs thought it would be too fucking annoying to have to deal with this as a player, so they just removed it entirely. Only the NPC Dwergars have sunlight sensitivity. So you know, the one critical downside of being a Dwergar doesn't even apply to you. And if you're playing D&D, just convince your DM to allow you to invent sunglasses. Problem solved. Plus now you've got the coolest looking character in the game. So there you go. Dwergar. Perfect for Dark Urge runs, perfect for min-maxers, perfect for people who just like making interesting choices and seeing rare dialogue options. Now some of you might be wondering, Cybershell, did you literally make this entire stupid video just because Dwergar are in Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden and Barkley 2? I mean, yeah?